Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, diving into this Ohio State defense heading into 2023. And this is a unit that, under Jim Knowles, I don't think got enough credit for what they did last year. And you take a look at what they have coming back to this 2023 team. This defense could be really special. And as a Michigan fan, I'm not going to ignore how talented this Ohio State defense is. You take a look down the 1 and 2 deep, guys that are going to be going and playing on Sundays. Guys who are preseason all Big Ten dudes. It's a loaded defense. Going to talk about who to look for and what we think this defense will look like in 2023. Now, before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown all offseason truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, let us know in the comments what we should be looking for, what players we should be looking for. Again, we learn a ton from you guys. That's the best part about doing this. So love chopping it up with you guys. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. They'll going to kick it off to you. This Ohio State defense in 2023 looking pretty freaky.
And just to echo what you said, I feel like Jim Knowles and company got a horrible rap and again, just like a distorted view because the last two games essentially didn't go right for them. And frankly, for the bulk of the game, they played really good. They just gave up some really horrible plays that it's not acceptable. And I don't want to excuse it and say oh, the defense was great and those don't matter. They certainly matter and they need to be cleaned up. But you look for the bulk of those two games and then frankly, for the rest of the season, this was an extremely good unit.
Yeah, I mean, especially you look back to that Michigan game, and again, as Michigan fans, we watched that game plenty. You take out 5 plays of that game, and Michigan might only score 10 points that game. And so, again, like you said, that has to be cleaned up. Limiting explosive plays is one of the most important metrics on the defensive side of football in college football. But in terms of down-to-down basis, I think this group can be really good. And before we get into the players, I kind of want to talk about year 2 under Jim Knowles. As Michigan fans, when Mike McDonald came in, there were some growing pains year 1. We were used to playing that really base 4-3 defense, kind of standard, not very complicated, not really asking too much of the players. Jim Knowles runs a very complicated defense. And we kind of said going into last year, there might be some growing pains on the defensive side of the football. In year 2, you might expect some of those to kind of be cleaned up and some of those busting coverage, some of those big plays that Ohio State allowed might get mitigated as these guys kind of are not really thinking about it and more just playing football on the defensive side.
Because even the busts, when you think about them, they were very rarely physical. I mean, that deep pass to Cornelius Johnson was just getting a terrible matchup. And in some of those plays, like the Arian Smith touchdown for Georgia, just leaving a guy wide open. So it's not like this secondary and company, they have the talent. They weren't physically overmatched in any stretch by any stretch of the imagination. It was just a couple breakdowns that, again, you mentioned it. You clean those up and you get another year with Jim Knowles to just lock in with those players. I don't see how it doesn't get better unless we're just way off on what Jim Knowles is as a coordinator. But everywhere else,
I'll tell you that Jim Knowles, and again, as a Michigan fan, I'm not trying to be all over Ohio State here, but I'm really high on what Jim Knowles can do. You saw what he did at Oklahoma State's defense, how consistent those defenses were, some of the best units in the country. I think it was obvious to just maybe expect some growing pains, but you take a look at the talent on the defensive side of the ball for Ohio State. I mean, it's next level, especially in the front 7. And I think the pass rush could be something you think back to the elite Ohio State defenses. It started with the pass rush. Guys like the Bosa brothers, guys like Chase Young. This group with JT and Jack Sawyer and then some guys on the inside, I mean, you might see one of the better pass rushes that you'll see not only in the Big Ten, but college football.
Yeah, and that to me is where you started to see them get really good and it was coming on, but I think they were 15th in sack percentage in the country. This is a unit that the talent they have, they should be probably top 10, probably closer to top 5. I mean, you look, JT and Jack Sawyer are really dynamic pass rushers from
two guys who might be going in the first round of the NFL draft in 8 months.
And then you look at Michael Hall and Tyler Williams, those are really dynamic interior pass rushers. In being able to turn that unit loose and just be really take over games in exactly the way you mentioned when they were really good and Chase Young was really flying around and both the Bosas, they took games over to the point where teams really couldn't do anything against them. I think this unit has potential to do it. it just will be about putting it together and getting it done because they're too good to not, I think, play at that level.
And you look at preseason All Big Ten rankings. I mean, like JT, Jack Sawyer, Michael Hall, all being picked to like first team All Big Ten teams, and I don't think I disagree with that. And so you're looking at like a lot of first round NFL draft talent on your one deep. Then you look at the two deep, and that's something we talk a lot about on the defensive line. There are some dudes, especially who are coming into their second year of college football, who I really expect to play a lot. Like last year, it was kind of hard to crack that lineup with Jack Sawyer, JT, Zach Harrison. Kenyatta Jackson Jr., like, fire me up for him. He looks like Zach Harrison did coming out of high school. And again, Zach Harrison maybe didn't reach the potential some Ohio State fans wanted from him. Still a really quality player in the Big Ten. Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, you go and get Tywone Malone on the inside. We're talking about Tyleek Williams potentially being in the two deep. I mean, those guys are starting on a lot of programs across the country, and they're just adding depth to this Ohio State defensive line.
Yeah, and in this unit, again, you just got to think it takes a step forward. The only guy who they really lost was Zach Harrison, who, again, wasn't the dominant player that I think Jack Sawyer and JT have shown.
Zach Harrison's so frustrating. Like, he flashed. It just never always seemed to be consistent. And you move to the linebacker room. You talk about the depth on the defensive line. Like, you might even have a deeper room in the linebacker room. Tommy Eichenberg, probably day 2 picks, decides to come back. Steel Chambers, very, very good. Then you talk about a guy, Dylan. I know you're going to hype him up. Cody Simon's good. CJ Hicks, it's hard to see us not seeing a lot of CJ Hicks this year.
Man, I feel like Tommy Eichenberg and CJ Hicks just have the potential to play together in a way that really complements each other's games. I mean, Tommy Eichenberg is as solid as it gets. I'm kind of stunned he came back to school because, frankly, I think he would have been probably the best linebacker in the draft last year in a class that wasn't extremely strong. I mean, that wasn't a great linebacker class.
You know why he's coming back? Like, it's unacceptable to that team's left some meat on the bone the last 2 years, so he's coming back to finish the job, and I like it.
Yeah, he's a guy who I'm sure, like, he needs to be part of a win against Michigan, like a real win. I mean, obviously he was on the team before, but I don't think he was ever a piece in terms of winning that game and winning a Big Ten title and national title. So you talk about it. I just think it's kind of like what we talk about LSU and Omar Spates and Harold Perkins. It's like you have a guy in CJ Hicks who I almost just want to see him get turned loose, like be able to make plays across the field. You saw him getting his hands on footballs in the spring game. That's the type of athlete in dynamic playmaking he brings. And frankly, when you have a guy like Tommy Eichenberg who just goes sideline to sideline, really stuffs the stat sheets with tackles, I think it gives them a chance to really use CJ Hicks and possibly even Sonny Styles in very unique ways to make a lot of plays that, frankly, they haven't been a unit that's been that playmaking unit that maybe you kind of come to expect with Ohio State and the talent they have.
It's funny you mentioned Sonny Styles because he's a guy that I could see playing in the box a lot. Like, have you seen? I think he's up to like 220. Like, this dude is rocked up, and I'll tell you one thing: these are the type of guys that Jim Knowles is probably like he's probably loving to have because he wants to use like this. You're gonna have so many different responsibilities, and being able to be a versatile playmaker on the defense in this Jim Knowles offense. It wasn't as important 10 years ago on the defense side of the ball, but with these modern defenses, trying to get speed and playmaking ability on the field and also being able to stop the run, having big bodies who are freak athletes like CJ Hicks, Sonny Styles, like Jim Knowles is going to have a field day moving those guys around the football field. Now, I want to get to the secondary because if there was like a gripe you had, it was they let up the explosive play a lot. Like 7.2 yards per pass, that's 58th nationally. That's about the only metric that Ohio State was not good in on the defensive side of the ball. They go out to the transfer portal. They bring in some guys. You're hoping you can get some development. Like Denzel Burke, as a true freshman, was like, okay, this guy's going first round in the NFL draft. I still think he can, but he definitely took a step back last year. You bring back a lot of the same guys who were in that secondary last year, but then you go out and add some dudes that are going to be some serious playmakers as well. And the depth and the talent, like the players are there. Now it's just got to come together.
And I do think like the amount of depth they added was big because you look, there were some moments where like Lathan Ransom, Josh Proctor just really didn't play, I think, good enough football at times to what Ohio State expects. And it's not like they're good players, but Ohio State, like you just look, this is a team that kind of the standard is to be an NFL guy. That's where they want it. And I'm not sure they played NFL caliber safety enough of the year. So now you do add some guys who are versatile. I mean, Davis Igbenos and Lorenzo Styles, Jahad Carter, all guys who I think can add depth, add competition, play versatile. And I think that'll be a big thing for because especially having safeties who can cover, I feel like was the one gripe you would really have with that unit.
In Alabama, I mean, Alabama struggled with the same thing, like having their guys who are safeties, like having to do man coverage and just getting worked by some wide receivers. Like that was a problem. And again, Lathan Ransom, Josh Proctor, like quality safeties, but definitely, again, left some meat on the bone last year. I'll highlight two guys. One, Davis Igbenos. Like I love the look of him. He looked phenomenal as a true freshman in the SEC at Ole Miss. Long, fast, ball skills. I mean, I think he could be like a lockdown cornerback. The guy I'm most excited about, kind of getting back to the versatility aspect of this Jim Knowles defense, Jahad Carter. Like, I mean, you would talk about a nickel guy that can play in the box and stop the run, can blitz, can be good in man coverage. That chess piece on the defense, I think Jahad Carter is that kind of guy. And I think he's going to add again, like some versatility and playmaking that maybe
just to keep them out of like bad matchups. It did feel like that was when you kind of got to him. Like when you got Arian Smith on a safety, that felt like a problem. Obviously, Cornelius Johnson, he exposed the safety play a little bit too. And that was the one I think the one place you saw them be able to be attacked. And again, you look at the guys they bring in, versatile players, can cover it, can play in the box, are really athletic. Sonny Styles is probably in that vein, a guy who you can do a lot with, and he can stay with wide receivers and play that type of game. So that, to me, is what I think you're looking for. That's the question, is can they play, just be a little tighter in that back end? Because that was really the only thing that they really got exposed on at times.
Yeah, but the story, I think, I guess the picture we're trying to paint is a lot of the hype goes to Ohio State's offense, and obviously Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, the wide receivers, the quarterback play. That's always been good, and I don't really care who the quarterback is. It sounds like it's going to be Kyle McCord. It's going to be good. You take a look at this defense, and I guess we'll close it off by just counting the guys who are going to be selected in 12 months. And that's not – I guess we will just leave the guys who are going into their second year who will be playing in the NFL. I mean, JT, Ty Hamilton, Michael Hall, Jack Sawyer, Tommy Eichenberg, Steele Chambers, and Cody Simon probably getting drafted in the NFL. That's 8. Lathan Ransom probably getting picked, Denzel Burke. I mean, you have almost 10 guys. And that's not even counting the dudes who are going to be drafted in 2025 or 2026 on this defense. The star talent is there. I think year 2 under Jim Knowles, that's a lot of optimism to be had. I think you have to be extremely excited about what this Ohio State defense can be. And again, not Ohio State, I'm actually a Michigan fan here. I know it doesn't
they just
sound
got to
like
go out and do it. Like Ryan Day kind of said, this unit looks like the 2019 defense. Those were some special units. They just got to go out there and do it. You know they have the talent. It's certainly not a question of that. It's just executing the fundamentals and being really tight down to down. Not, again, like you just can't make the horrible mistakes. And we've talked about that with other teams, but that's been an issue now for 2 years. And we'll see if that changes. If it does, this unit you're looking, I think top 10 minimum, top 5 is very much
high ceiling. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, and we'll talk to y'all later.